Hello again, sir. Can you see and hear me?
I can.
Good. I'm pleased to say we can see and hear you now.
Good. Thanks very much. Sorry to everyone for the delay.
Our witness today is Calum Greenhow. Please can the witness be sworn?
Please repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Please give your full name.
Calum Brian Greenhow.
You should have in front of you a copy of your witness statement dated the 4th of September 2024.
I do.
That statement runs to 133 pages. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could I please ask you to turn to page 124 of your statement?
Yes,
Do you see your signature there before?
I do.
Is the content of that statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
It is.
Mr. Greenhow, my name is Ms. Hodge, and I'll be asking questions on behalf of the inquiry. Before I do so, I believe there's a statement that you would like to make. Is that correct?
If I can. Something rather odd happened yesterday. When my inquiry counsel and I were heading to our accommodation last night, we came out of Holborn tube station, and I literally had to step out of the way of Lord Justice Fraser. And the reason I mention that is I think it's important that I thank not only the inquiry, but also Lord Justice Fraser, the work that you have all done. Because without your work, we would not know what we know today. I approached the inquiry as a postmaster who has served behind the counter and used Horizon since 1999 and still do today. I wanted to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even if that meant some uncomfortable truths were discovered about the organisation that I lead today. I'd like to thank those who were involved, such as Sir Alan Bates, Joe Hamilton, Lord Arbuthnot, etc., because it's their tenacity, their dignity, their courage, and their determination that we're here today. I'd like to offer them all my apologies as the Chief Executive of the NFSP and ask for their forgiveness for the part that the NFSP has played in what they've experienced and what they've had to endure over that period of time. And I hope that they will accept my apologies in the manner that it is intended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenhow. You are currently employed as the Chief Executive Officer of the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters. Is that correct?
I am.
Before we examine the circumstances of your appointment as CEO, I'd like to ask some brief questions about your background, please. You say that in August 1995, you and your wife purchased the post office branch in West Linton, a village located in the Scottish borders. Is that right?
We did.
You were appointed the SPM of that branch, which you ran with your wife, until your appointment as CEO. Is that correct?
Yes.
In 2001, you became a member of the NFSP, which at that time was registered as a trade union. Is that right?
Yes.
You've explained in your statement that the NFSP is currently divided into 53 separate branches and 10 separate regions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that representation extend to the whole of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland?
Yes, it does.
Has the number of local branches and regions remained consistent throughout the time covered by this inquiry?
I don't think it has, but I cannot confirm that. I'm giving it from its current basis.
Before you were appointed the CEO of the NFSP, you held various different roles within the organisation. Is that correct?
Yes.
In 2010, you were elected the president of the South of Scotland branch. Is that right?
I was.
Do you recall how many branches of the NFSP there were in Scotland at that time? Roughly.
7.
And do you know how many post office branches were located within the south of Scotland at that time?
I can't remember offhand. It would be 100, 150, I think.
What did your role as president of the South of Scotland branch entail?
In essence, I was chair of the branch. So if we had a branch meeting, it would be my responsibility to chair the meeting and support the branch secretary. But it was the branch secretary who really did most of the work. That would also involve attending regional meetings and then conference. I attended the NFSP's annual conference for the first time in 2010.
In 2012, you were elected the branch secretary of the South of Scotland branch, is that right?
I was.
Please can you describe the role performed by the secretary of the local branch?
In essence, it was to be there as the contact point for members to distribute information. If any postmaster had a problem or an issue, I would be the first port of call. If there was an interview with the post office, I may go along to that, or it may have been left to others.
In 2013, you were elected as the representative for Scotland on the NFSP Standing Orders Committee, is that correct?
Yes.
In your statement, you say that the committee was responsible for dealing with the motions from branches which would go to the annual conference. Can you please explain what a motion is?
So a motion would be, conference in essence was a whole series of questions, thoughts, ideas that were being brought to the attention of the wider NFSP membership. And a motion was an individual request that may go to, it would instruct the Executive Council to do something. And then what would happen is that would be debated at conference by all who attended conference. It would be debated prior to that at a regional meeting, for example, of members, and then a decision by the membership would be taken whether to adopt or not that particular motion.
You say that the motion was a request from whom?
From the members.
And what function was performed by the committee in relation to these motions?
So, in essence, we were looking at whether there was motions that came in that had a similar vein to them or a similar thought, and we might amalgamate those together. Whether that motion had been asked within the last 2 years and had been rejected, so it would have to carry over for another year. In essence, that was really it.
So the committee was responsible for either permitting motions to go to conference or rejecting them, is that correct?
One of, was ultimately the decision was of the Executive Council, I believe, but certainly we would meet in the March of the calendar year to actually go through those motions, and normally the President of the NFSP along with the General Secretary of the NFSP would be present, and others, and they would be discussed, and then we would try and put them into themes, etc. But yes, in essence, we were a form of the ability to enable those motions to be brought to conference.
But also to filter them, would that be?
Yes.
In 2016, you were elected to the board of the NFSP as the Scotland Regional Non-Executive Director, is that correct?
Yes.
By that stage, the organisation was no longer registered as a trade union.
Yes.
Having in September 2015 established itself as a private limited company. Is that right? I'd like to ask you some questions about your decision to seek appointment as the CEO of the NFSP. In your statement, you say that you wish to make the organisation more inclusive and representative of its members. Is that correct?
I think that was in relation to me being the Chief Executive.
Yes, forgive me, sorry.
Yes.
I'm asking you now about your appointment as Chief Executive.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about The board, sorry, apologies.
So concerning your motivation for seeking appointment as the chief executive, one of the points you raised in your statement is that you wish to make the organisation more inclusive
Yes.
And representative of its members.
Yes.
Is that correct? You also describe in your statement that you considered your predecessor's approach to leadership was autocratic. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you please explain why you characterised Mr. Thompson's leadership in that way?
Well, I think if anybody who's been to the inquiry may have seen just exactly how George acts. If you didn't agree with him, he would let you know. And he was very much about pushing forward his view, his thoughts, his ideas. I felt that as an ordinary member and even as a board member, there was a toxicity within the membership of the NFSP towards him. There was a lot of negative feeling against him. And I think a lot of things that were going on that people didn't know what was going on. There wasn't much communication. And therefore, I felt that was not the right way. I'm a completely different person. I'm not an exclusive person. I'm an inclusive person. And I've got nothing to hide in any way, shape or form. So I really want to get out there, engage with my fellow postmaster members, seek their views. Their experience is vast, their knowledge is vast. And it's important to listen to different ideas. It doesn't necessarily mean to sort of say that just because someone puts forward a view, that will be the view that's taken forward. But it's important to listen to what people have to sort of say, take it on board, and then make a decision. And that's not what I saw with George.
According to your statement, when you were first appointed a member of the board in mid-June 2016, you challenged the stance being taken by the board and the then CEO in relation to the integrity of Horizon. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
You state that you recall telling the board at a meeting in mid-June 2016 that Horizon could not be correct 100% of the time. Is that right?
Yes.
And you also stated, you say, that even if there were no systemic issues with the system, there might still be local faults. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
The inquiry has been shown the minutes of the meeting to which you refer in your statement. For reference, they can be found at NFSP 50500. I think you accept, do you not, that your comments are not recorded in those minutes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why is it, do you think, that your comments about the integrity of Horizon were not recorded in the minutes of the meeting?
I don't think there was any particular reason for it. I think what was recorded was what Peter Montgomery was saying, and we were coming at the same sort of issue from a slightly different angle. But I think sort of Peter's comments were maybe more valid or more a summation of the debate and the conversation that was going on, so that was all recorded. I don't think there's any specific reason why sort of my comments were not recorded.
There is a reference in the minutes of the meeting to the principle of collective cabinet responsibility. Please could we display the minutes to see that reference in its context? It's at the bottom of page 22 onto page 23, please. Thank you. Thank you. So we see at the first bullet point, your colleague Peter Montgomery, who you referenced, raising the issue of the group litigation. And if we go down to the bottom, please, the final bullet point reads, The NFSP's policy has always been that it is a robust system and we have full confidence in it, that being the Horizon system. And if we could scroll down, please. Do not believe the system is systematically faulty. Most people that blame Horizon for losses are overinflating their cash declarations, false accounting. Sub-postmasters take money sometimes, and members of staff also take money. Reminded that members of the council should adhere to collective cabinet responsibility. Did you feel compelled by your membership of the NFSP board to toe the party line on the integrity of Horizon?
No.
You say in your statement that the purpose of raising questions about Horizon's integrity in the first board meeting was to try to build some momentum that would be capable of challenging the stance adopted by your predecessor. Is that correct?
Yes.
What further steps did you take, either at board level or within the wider NFSP organisation, to build that momentum to challenge his stance on Horizon?
Difficult to remember everything that sort of took place so long ago, but in essence, obviously, you can see from Peter's view, we would regularly go for walks, we would have discussions, I would talk to other individuals, with members within the Federation, other postmasters who had a different view. I felt that it was important to understand the board, see where the board were sitting, see many of them I didn't necessarily know personally at that point. Get to know them, get to sort of understand them, and get to see sort of where they went. And whenever any opportunities arose to actually maybe have a different view, I would take that forward.
Now, we know that your appointment to the board took effect in or around June 2016. Is that correct? Yeah. Between that time and your appointment as CEO, did you ever raise the issue of Horizon's integrity again with the board?
Sorry, say that again?
So between your appointment to the board as a non-executive director in June 2016 and your appointment as CEO of the NFSP in 2018, did you ever raise the issue of Horizon's integrity again at the board? So far as you recall,
I don't think I did. Certainly, from what I can see from the minutes and emails, I don't think it actually came up.
I'd like to go back in time, please, to examine when you first became aware of concerns about the integrity of Horizon. In your statement, you first date your awareness of issues with Horizon's integrity to the summer of 2015. Is that correct?
Yes.
By that stage, you'd held the role of branch secretary since 2012, is that right?
Yes.
And you've been appointed the elected representative for Scotland on the Standing Orders Committee.
Yes.
You've explained in your statement and in your evidence this morning that if members of the NFSP had concerns that they wished to raise, their first point of contact would be the branch secretary, is that right?
Yes.
Or one of their first points of contact. Does it follow that during the time which you served as branch secretary for South of Scotland, that no member ever raised any concerns with you about the reliability of the Horizon system?
Correct. And can I just sort of add to that, actually, as someone who had used and was using sort of Horizon, whilst there may have been issues in relation to it freezing or problems as far as a screen or a printer or a base unit not working, that would be what maybe people would have come to me about. But as far as ascribing losses to Horizon, to my knowledge, no one came to me about that.
Looking back, does it surprise you that the problems with Horizon were not brought to your attention in your capacity either as president or branch secretary of the South of Scotland branch?
Not really, no.
Why is it, do you think, that these problems weren't reported to you?
I can't answer that sort of specifically. All I can say is again, as someone who was using sort of Horizon, I didn't see Horizon as an issue. We were using it; it was functioning. Clearly, for some people, it wasn't. I can only go on my own personal experience of having used Horizon, and other than it freezing, a scanner not working, I've not had any personal experience of faults with the software that I believe have caused losses in my own branch. And between 2012 and 2015, no one had raised that sort of issue with me, and as I was going to regional meetings, it wasn't really being raised much there. What was being raised was more about network transformation and other sort of issues.
We know from documents which have been disclosed by the NFSP that some local branches of the organisation were seeking to raise concerns about Horizon.
Absolutely.
In the motions which they submitted for consideration at the annual conference. Please can one of these documents be shown on the screen? It bears the reference NFSP 401037. Thank you. This document appears to contain a list of motions submitted by the Midlands region of the NFSP for consideration at the annual conference held in 2010. Is that right?
Yep. Yes.
The third motion in the list reads as follows, that this conference mandates the EC, it's a reference to the Executive Council, is it?
Yes, the Executive Council, yes.
Not to accept any changes to the Horizon system, either firmware or software, until fully validated as fit for purpose by the Horizon Steering Group. Can you help us? Who sat on the Horizon Steering Group?
This was obviously well before my time. I attended the conference for the first time in 2010. As I said, sort of in my opening statement, I came into this to try and sort of find out. This was something that I found out, but as far as who that Horizon Steering Group is concerned, I've never been able to find out exactly what that was.
Please could we scroll down to the sixth motion? Thank you. In the list that reads that this conference mandate the EC to demand that Paul retain all historical Horizon data that relate to Horizon failures, both firmware and software, for a minimum of 12 months. Mm-hmm. From what you said, you just now, it appears to be that you were not aware of these motions at the time when they were submitted. Is that correct?
No.
You have said, however, that you attended the annual conference of the NFSP for the first time in that year of 2010. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Does it follow that these motions were not debated at the annual conference which you attended?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I can't remember.
Who would have been responsible for determining whether or not these particular motions were debated at the annual conference?
I'd imagine sort of the Standing Orders Committee and the Executive Council.
And to be fair to you, you weren't yet a member of the Standing Orders Committee at that time?
No.
You took over in 2012. You joined in 2012.
No, I joined in 2013.
Sorry, 2013. Please could we look at another set of motions? They bear the reference NFSP 401044. Do you know from which region of the NFSP these motions were submitted?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't.
And are you able to tell us to which annual conference they related?
No, I can't.
Could we turn, please, to page 5 of this document? It's motion number 43. Thank you. It reads that this conference instructs the Executive Council to negotiate with Post Office Limited that computer-generated discrepancies are not the responsibility of the sub-postmaster. Then in brackets it reads, sub-postmasters not to be responsible for computer-generated discrepancies on Horizon. Under the heading Status, it reads, where evidence exists that the error is not as a result of human input, then a claim will not be pursued. Who would have been responsible for reporting on the status of this motion?
I would imagine the Executive Council.
This entry appears to accept the possibility that discrepancies were generated by Horizon, does it not?
It certainly reads that way, yes.
When did this document first come to your attention?
I think as we were preparing documents for this inquiry.
You mentioned in your statement that... sorry, that can come down, please. Thank you. You mentioned in your statement that you watched the BBC Panorama programme, which was aired in August 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
In your statement, you say this about the programme. When I watched the Panorama programme and saw Huey Thomas, Joe Hamilton and Seema Misra, I couldn't see them as people who had stolen money. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Does it follow that after watching the Panorama programme, you became concerned that the Post Office might have wrongly prosecuted sub-postmasters in reliance on data generated by Horizon?
Yes, and obviously I've provided evidence, or there has been evidence provided to the inquiry that shows that.
Shortly after watching the programme, you received and read a branch circular from George Thompson, then CEO of the NFSP, is that right?
Yes.
Please can that document be shown on the screen? It bears the reference WITN 00370126. Thank you. So this is the branch secretary's circular. Can you just briefly explain what the purpose of a circular like this is and was?
Yes, so obviously this is before the mass usage of the internet as we have, or the various social media channels. So at that time, providing information from Showroom to the members came via the branch secretary, so we would receive these circulars, and it was our duty and our responsibility to distribute that information to our members within our particular branch or region.
You said that it came from Showroom.
Yeah.
By that you mean the central office of the National Federation of
the
Sub-Postmasters?
NFSP headquarters in Showroom, yes.
So this circular is dated the 18th of August 2015. It's volume 24, addressed to the branch secretary, and it bears the title Post Office Under the Spotlight. Can we please scroll down to the third paragraph, which addresses the Panorama programme? It reads, the second sentence, please. Last night's Panorama BBC One documentary sought to get underneath the bright, shiny exterior of the post office and reveal a less palatable side of the business. The long-standing issue of prosecutions of sub-postmasters and the alleged systemic failings of Horizon look set to continue for some time yet. Over the past few years, the NFSP has received thousands of telephone calls from sub-postmasters. The majority relate to employment law, contract issues, and network transformation. The remainder cover ATMs, cash supply, ATMs, I assume it's meant to say, cash supply, and just about every subject you care to mention, including a handful every month on Horizon connectivity and the problems of getting through to Atos and the help desk. Put simply, the NFSP has not received calls from sub-postmasters querying Horizon and alleging systemic failings. If there was a widespread problem, our sub-postmasters would have made us aware of it. As a result, we have no choice but to conclude that Horizon is a fundamentally sound and safe system. In your statement, you explain that you did not agree with the message conveyed in this circular. and that you decided to raise your concerns with the CEO. Is that correct?
I think he was General Secretary at that point, but yes.
Forgive me,
Yes.
You wrote an email to Mr. Thompson on the 19th of August 2015 in which you invited him to consider the possibility that those who were challenging the integrity of Horizon might be correct.
Yes.
And you invited him to show his support for the SPMs whose cases were being reviewed by Second Sight. Is that right?
Yes.
For the benefit of the transcript, that email bears the reference POL 00162668. I don't propose to take you to that document. It's already been shown in this inquiry. But I'm happy to do so if there's any particular part of it you wish to draw to the Chair's attention.
I just think, obviously, it was difficult sort of as a branch secretary at that point. I just considered myself an honorary postmaster. I just, having watched Horizon, the Panorama programme, that was really, in essence, me starting to get to sort of understand, hang on a second, maybe there's something more to this. Up to that point, we occasionally heard of people being convicted, people admitting their guilt, but we hadn't really heard too much about the possibility that actually it could be Horizon. And this was, in essence, me starting to get to question that, and a little question mark on, hang on, is there something sort of more here? And I felt that this statement was more saying there's absolutely no possibility that there could be anything wrong. It's, Horizon is absolutely sound, and I just don't feel that a computer system, as we have seen today, can be 100% of the time. And therefore, I felt that it was important for myself to try and reach out to the General Secretary and say, could you possibly look at this a different way? Is there a possibility that there's something different to this?
In addition to raising that concern with the General Secretary, you also contacted Paul McBain, who was then the Scottish Non-Executive Director, is that right?
Actually, at that time, he was the Regional Secretary.
Regional Secretary.
He did eventually become a Non-Executive Director, but at that time, he was the Regional Secretary.
And Donald Ramsey, who was then the Scottish Executive
Yes.
Officer, is that right? You proposed to Mr. McBain that the NFSP conduct its own full and independent inquiry into Horizon's integrity, is that right?
Yes.
And you requested that the issue be placed on the agenda for the forthcoming regional meeting.
Yes.
That meeting took place on the 2nd of October 2015, is that correct?
It is.
You've provided the minutes of that meeting, which bear the reference WITN 00370131. And please can that be shown on the screen? Thank you. So this document bears the title Minutes of Meeting of Scotland Regional Council held at the Grampian Hotel in Perth on the 2nd of October 2015. To clarify, did you attend that meeting on the 2nd of October?
Yes.
It lists certain apologies, but are you able to confirm who else was in attendance at that meeting?
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at just the Vice President above. So obviously Jamil Ahmed was there, the National President, Jim Knott was there, Laura Hobbins, who was, from memory, was an employee of Parcel Force, and there would have been other branch secretaries, obviously the Executive Officer, Donald Ramsey, and Paul McBain. In fact, at that time there would have been two, so there might have been Andrew Gilhooly as well. as I say, other individuals, but beyond that, I can't remember specifically.
And you say Mr. Jim Knott was the national president at that time, is that?
Yes.
Please could we turn to page 2 of the minutes, where we can see some discussion in relation to Horizon. If we could scroll down, please. Thank you. So in bold, there's the heading BSC 24. Is that a reference to the branch circular which we showed on screen a short time ago?
I believe it is.
So it reads BSC 24 under the spotlight with regards to the Horizon system and what it does and does not do. National President agreed that the Post Office did a lot wrong in the early years, but there's no evidence that the systems were at fault. What did you understand the National President to mean when he said that Post Office did a lot wrong in the early years?
I cannot say for definite what that means. It's not something I can remember discussing with Jim. So I can't say for definite. Sorry.
The minutes then say this. The National President also explained that the system was checked annually for its robustness and no issues were found by these outsourced companies, of which Pricewaterhouse was one. Do you know from where the National President obtained that information?
No, I don't. I can only, if he's mentioned Pricewaterhouse specifically, I can only assume that he had received some information that had Pricewaterhouse on it.
Finally, the minutes record that the agreement with the delegates was to accept the response, but believe that the issue would return would return due to MP signing an early day motion. Now, the reference to the response, should we understand that to mean the response of the National President or the response of Mr. Thompson in the branch circular? Are you able to assist?
I think it would have been what was said on the day by the National President.
By the National President. These minutes show, do they not, that the delegates at this meeting, of which you were one, agreed to accept the party line on Horizon?
Yeah, I suppose that's correct.
Why did you accept the response of the National President if you believed by this stage that the Post Office had wrongly prosecuted sub-postmasters?
I think at this stage I was beginning to question rather than be absolutely certain that the Post Office were wrongly convicted. I think at this point I was starting to think differently. But as far as evidence is concerned, I didn't have that at that time. I was, watching sort of obviously the Panorama programme and thinking something's not right here. But as far as having absolute evidence and proof, as we now do, I did not have that at the time, and neither did any of the other individuals who were attending. And again, we're all postmasters, we're all using the system, and whilst we may have had problems with the, as I say, with a screen or with the hardware, but as far as understanding that there was potential problems with the software that may have been making false discrepancies, that Post Office were maliciously prosecuting those individuals as a result of, I don't think any of us had that evidence at that time. But our feeling of the Post Office was not one of, put it this way, Sadiq, I think Sadiq, we were all, I mean, even I have been stunned by exactly what's going on. I still struggle to understand the scale of exactly what's going on. As I've said, Sadiq, I say elsewhere in my statement that, government, the civil service, big business in terms of Post Office, Fujitsu, Royal Mail, even the legal industry are involved in this. Collectively, we all got it wrong. We cannot ignore that there's 900 cases. That's 900 prosecutions, 900 defence, 900 judges that were all involved in that. Our faith in the legal industry is such that, well, we would hope and expect the legal industry to have investigated this properly, and if they were convicted, then there must be something in it. We that's where we were, and therefore we didn't have the evidence to suggest that the scale of the cover-up and the scale of what was going on, the scale of the victimisation, was actually present.
In your statement, you say that you don't recall taking any further steps after this meeting in October to raise your concerns, to escalate your concerns about Horizon. Is that correct?
It is. If I can just say, actually, I can't find any evidence. I look back on my own personal emails at that time to sort of see if I had done anything. I do highlight that obviously I had to make the decision. My wife and I were having to make a decision as far as our own business in relation to network transformation, and we had to make we were making the very difficult decision to, in essence, exit the business and what that implication was going to have on our future. I mean, we live above the post office. Our post office is attached to the business. If we lost our business, we were going to lose our home. We were going to lose our ability to care for and provide for our daughters. Those are big decisions, and understandably, that's where my focus was at the time. I'd raised it, and other things came in that demanded my time.
Mr. Greenhow, what does the last part of the last sentence mean? Believe that the issue would return due to MP signing an early day motion. Can you translate that for me, please?
I can give you what I think it means. I can't necessarily say that it's specific. Obviously, an early day motion, to my knowledge, within the political field is that an MP will bring a motion, which is called an early day motion.
Right, sorry to stop you. So I wondered whether this was something to do with a person MP within the NFSP, but it's not. It's about an MP raising it in an early day motion. Right, I'm with you.
If I may explain, sir, the NFSP does not have any political affiliations. We're apolitical on that basis. We provide no funds to any political party. So we do engage, obviously, and we lobby MPs on behalf of postmasters to highlight exactly what's going on in the network. But this may have been done independently of the NFSP, or it may have been done as a result of the NFSP lobbying. I don't know.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenhow. I'd like to ask you now about your knowledge of a defect in Horizon Online known as the Dalmellington bug.
Yes.
The existence of this bug was brought to your attention by Tim McCormack, an sub-postmaster who at that time was a member of the Communication Workers Union. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you know why Mr. McCormack came to you with his concerns about this bug?
Tim and I sort of communicated backwards and forwards. I can't remember the specifics of it. I can remember obviously dealing with a particular case, and whether I had read something or was aware of something, or obviously Tim has provided a lot of blogs. Maybe I had read something that he had said in a blog and contacted him, but he certainly wouldn't have known that I was dealing with this. So I may have contacted him just to say, have you heard of anything along this lines? Or I may have read something in what he said, which encouraged me to contact him to ask a little bit more, because the Dalmellington bug seemed to be similar to a situation that I was dealing with on behalf of a colleague.
You've produced a copy of the email which Mr McCormack sent to you on the 9th of August 2016. Please can that document be shown on the screen? It bears the reference WITN 003700129. Thank you. So halfway down the first page, we can see the email from Mr McCormack to you on the 9th of August. It reads, "Hi, Calum. Just had a call from Mark Daniels." Who was Mark Daniels, please?
Mark Daniels was a dual member of both the CW and the NFSP.
We really need to talk about this. You won't know half of the story surrounding Dalmellington yet, but one of the most important points that has come out of it has been the Post Office's refusal to inform the network that this type of problem can occur. Seema Misra was sent to prison for falsifying accounts, and the judge specifically noted that if the computer caused the shortfall in the accounts, then she should have noticed. Pretty difficult when Post Office know about these problems and don't tell you what to look for. Please, this is so important for all remaining SPMs and new entrants. He then gives his telephone number. In this email, once again, we see, on this occasion, Mr McCormack alerting you to the risk that sub-postmasters had been and were being wrongly held accountable for bugs in Horizon, which the Post Office knew about but were not willing to disclose. Is that fair?
Yes.
We can see he asked you to contact him, and in the email above, you say you will do. Did you in fact contact Mr Cormack?
I think I did.
Do you recall what he told you about the Dalmellington bug?
He described what actually happened, and would you like me to?
Please.
Yes. Okay. The Dalmellington bug, to my understanding, is where a postmaster operates what's known as a core and outreach. Now, the core is the full-time office, and an outreach would be a part-time office where they would go out to a small community, neighbouring community, and they would set up a post office. Basically, they would take the Horizon kit with them, and they would set it all out, and then the community could come in and they would be able to serve them and provide them with the services that they require. What would happen is you would transfer cash and stock from your core office into your outreach office and take it obviously to that location. You may also at times, and I've never operated one, so I'm going from my understanding, you may want to transfer cash and stock from the outreach back into the core. My understanding is that you did that in exactly the same way as if we were sending cash and stock back to the cash centre or receiving cash and stock into our post office.
Sorry, by cash centre you mean the post office?
Post office, sorry, yeah, the post office cash centre. My understanding of the Dalmellington bug is that process could be faulty and could result in double entering or triple entering, and I believe in Dalmellington, as the person was scanning it, it was creating multiple entries, which was causing it to look as if her outreach or her core actually had more cash and stock than it actually had.
Having been told this by Mr McCormack, did you take any action to draw the existence of the bug to the attention of the NFSP board?
Unfortunately, I don't think I did.
Looking back, did the existence of this bug not provide you with the ammunition which you needed to challenge the stance being adopted by the then CEO?
Well, it certainly gave me further evidence that maybe something isn't quite right. But I think I don't know if you want to sort of come on to it, obviously when we had the interview with the post office, I've documented that I did challenge the post office.
I will come on to that now. No, but if we just take it in order, it might.
That's fine.
Thank you. So you've explained in your statement that you later became involved in a case of a sub-postmaster who operated an outreach branch in Scotland. Is
Yes.
that correct? That sub-postmaster had experienced a discrepancy of £39,000,
From memory, yes.
which related to the transfer of cash and stock between their core and outreach
Yes.
branches. I think you said based on the information which you've been told by Mr. McCormack, that the discrepancy might have been caused by the Dalmellington bug. Is that
Yes.
right? And when you accompanied the sub-postmaster at his interview, which was conducted by Brian Trotter, the
Yes.
Post Office Contracts Manager in Scotland, you raised the existence of the bug with Mr. Trotter, is that correct?
I asked him about if it was possible that Dalmellington bug could be responsible for the situation here because it had very similar hallmarks to it.
How did Mr. Trotter respond when you raised this?
He simply said that it couldn't possibly be because that had been dealt with prior to this happening.
Were you satisfied by that explanation?
No.
How did the meeting conclude?
As I've put in my statement, I believe there was 2 action points. The post office were going to go away and get the evidence, and unfortunately one of the aspects that as I was asking for evidence, the post office were saying, well, that's not going to be easy, it's going, it's beyond the 6 months that we're going to have to go to Fujitsu.
Sorry, just to stop you, evidence of what, please?
Evidence of what the post office were presenting as potentially the reason why in fact, they weren't providing any evidence, to be truthful. They were, the way that they did the interview is they asked the postmaster why it couldn't possibly be, how did this discrepancy take place. They weren't providing any evidence. They weren't coming in and saying, on such and such a day you did this. They were just simply asking, you've got a loss. Explain to us how that happened. So in other words, it was up to the postmaster to be able to prove that how that happened. So I was challenging the post office for the evidence as to how that discrepancy could take place, because the postmaster couldn't possibly get it, because it was beyond. We only have access to 3 months of data within our office. We were talking over a year here. So therefore, I was asking the post office, you need to go away and provide that evidence. And until you provide that evidence and prove it, we're not prepared to sort of accept it.
Skivvy, you were saying in relation to your request that they supply that evidence.
Yes, I was asking them to do that.
And what was their response?
They would go away and they would go away and provide it. And sadly, they never did.
What, if any, steps did you take to follow up on that request that the post office produce evidence of how the discrepancy had occurred?
Well, I kept on asking for the evidence to be provided. As I say in my statement, I would be in contact with the postmaster. They hadn't heard anything. Getting any information out of the post office was not easy. They're not great at responding to either phone calls or to emails. At one point, I discovered that the case was being heard or was being considered before the senior contracts manager at the time. I had not been informed of that. The postmaster had been. In fact, actually, the post office really didn't engage with us on it, which was really a concern to me, and it's stuck with me ever since. In fact, I think sort of me bringing up the Dalmellington bug, I've always wondered if that actually had an impact on how the post office treated the postmaster. And it's always been a concern to me if me bringing that up has actually, made things worse. But I never got any information from them, unfortunately.
How did this particular case conclude?
I eventually contacted the postmaster, I think in December, and he had been notified that his contract had been terminated. But I had, as I say, no evidence had been provided to me. No further correspondence had taken place with the post office, and I felt that that was, was not right.
Looking back, do you consider that you could or should have done more to challenge the Post Office's refusal or failure to provide documentary evidence to support?
I mean, it's difficult because when you're, and as I learn with the Post Office, you ask them something they don't want to say, I call it they go into their black hole, and you just don't get any correspondence from them. You can bang your head against a brick wall until you've got a rather sore head, and it just doesn't happen. They just literally withdraw. And you know, to be honest, I didn't know what more I could do. I just continued to believe in the postmaster, support the postmaster. And obviously, when the GLO concluded, I was straight on the phone to the postmaster. When I heard there was the historical shortfall scheme, you need to get yourself involved in that. I think you've got a case. And it was then that I discovered that he was thankfully part of the GLO. But as we sit here today, 5 years after that, he still has not received his redress, which I think is shocking.
Thank you, sir. That brings the end to that particular topic I wish to discuss. It may be a convenient time to take a 15-minute break.
Yeah, by all means, Ms. Hodge. And I've got it right, have I? The detail which Mr. Greenhow has been giving orally, essentially I can find it at paragraphs 99 and 100 of his statement, yeah?
That's correct, sir, yes.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. Yeah. So we'll start again at, 25 past, is it? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fine, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to move on, please, Mr. Greenhow, to examine your approach to the group litigation brought by Sir Alan Bates and others against the Post Office.
Yes.
You say in your statement that you did not share your predecessor's dismissive attitude towards the group litigation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that upon being appointed as the CEO of the NFSP, you wish to demonstrate that your attitude to litigation was different.
Yes.
In your written evidence, you say that you attended the first day of the Common Issues trial and that you had hoped to shake hands with Sir Alan Bates, but the opportunity did not arise. Is that correct?
Or maybe just the way I've described it. For some, I can't remember exactly the reason why, but obviously, as you know, the layout of this room, there's the ante-room and I was outside. I can't remember the reason why I was outside. And all of a sudden, Sir Alan came out of the room and it was only myself and him in this foyer or whatever. I was at one end and he was at the other end, and he quickly disappeared. He may have been going to the toilet or something like that. I honestly don't know. But I didn't get the chance. But it would have been lovely to be able to go across, shake his hand, and just thank him for what he's done.
And so that was an opportunity, as you saw it, to express your support privately to Mr. Bates.
Yes.
In respect of
yes.
the bringing of the litigation.
Absolutely.
Now, please could we bring up paragraph 135 of your statement, in which you address the approach which you adopted publicly to the group litigation. That's the reference to the statement, please, WITN 00370100. Thank you. And it's page 47. Thank you. If we scroll down, please, paragraph 35. Thank you very much. So you say here, the legal process was underway with court dates set when I took on the chief executive role in June 2018, and the NFSP was not a party in the group litigation case. Therefore, I determined it was right to allow the due legal process to take place and allow the courts to determine once and for all what the answer to the Horizon issue was. Added, as someone not experienced or practiced in the legal process, I did not think we could get involved at that stage. I certainly had no idea that the NFSP would be a significant focus of the GLO proceedings. Thank you. That can be brought down. Thank you very much. A short time ago, you told the inquiry that you believed that Hubie Thomas, Joe Hamilton and Seema Misra were not guilty of stealing from the post office. Why then did you not speak out publicly in support of the group litigation?
Quite simply, I didn't think we could. It's as simple as that.
You were given the opportunity to comment and to throw your weight behind the litigation, were you not? Please can NFSP 50779 be shown on the screen?
Sorry, apologies. I wasn't really giving an answer. Sorry. I wasn't sure.
Do you recall whether you were given an opportunity to comment?
Not to my knowledge. You may be about to remind me.
Thank you. This document contains an email from Nick Wallace to the National Federation of Postmasters. Mr. Wallace reported extensively on the group litigation. If we scroll down to the middle of page 2, please. Thank you. We can see there his email addressed to Amanda Cox, who from the email appears to have been the General Office Supervisor and Receptionist. Is that correct?
Yes.
This email is dated 16th of November 2018, and it reads as follows. Hi, I'm a journalist covering the Bates versus Post Office High Court trial, and yesterday, as you may know, the NFSP's independence was queried in court. I've covered this as a reporter and published a separate piece for my blog outlining the NFSP's historic refusal to get behind claims that Horizon is not fit for purpose. My separate piece is a piece of comment, and I'm very hard on the NFSP, focusing on its contractual inability to criticise the Post Office on this issue and the decision it appears to have taken as an organisation that it's better to let its members hang out to dry if they're having problems with Horizon in order to protect the integrity of the brand to clients and other sub-postmasters. As explained by George Thomas in his evidence to Parliament on the 3rd of February 2015. He goes on to say, it is both right and fair to offer you the opportunity to have your position acknowledged and incorporated into the piece. You could do this in one of two ways, issue a statement or have the right of reply. He then goes on to suggest some topics that may be covered if you were to issue a statement. And he also expressly says, if we could go down, please. If the CEO of the NFSP would prefer to write a right of reply piece for publication on my blog, he would be more than welcome. If we scroll back up to the bottom of the first page, please, we can see that that email, thank you, was forwarded by Miss Cox to you and to Lynn Eccles. What was Miss Eccles' role within the NFSP?
She was the communications director.
Thank you. Thank you. If we could scroll up then please to the top of the first page. Miss Eccles writes to you, it appears, later the same day. She says, thanks, Amanda. Calum, the ongoing court case line doesn't entirely stand up because not all of these questions are linked directly to what's happening in court. Still, I don't think we should provide a detailed comment. It will give the discussion around our independence legs. I think there's also a risk if we just step up and defend the NFSP. It gives support to the perception that we only really care about the Fed and not the sub-postmasters which are part of this class action. Nick will criticise us for hiding behind court process, but given that we're no longer firmly coming down on one side or the other, I think that's the best we can do for now. Suggest something like this. Thanks for sharing the blog and giving us a right to reply. We welcome the opportunity for these matters to be explored fully in court and respect the court's process. We do not wish to contribute to a running commentary on the case and won't be making any comment until all matters have been aired in court. She then says, FYI, he, that is Nick, will come back to us for a comment when it's all done and dusted, so you will need to be ready for that. Did you agree with the response that was proposed by Ms Eccles?
Yes, I did.
Was this not an excellent opportunity to set the record straight and to lend your support to the group litigation?
Well, as I've mentioned in my witness statement, I'm not conversed as far as legal matters are concerned. And I had faith and confidence, but I do have faith and confidence in the legal process. I didn't think it was right and appropriate for the NFSP to be making any comment in relation to an ongoing case. I didn't think that would be, I didn't know if that could potentially get us into trouble. And I felt that the right thing to do was to wait and allow Lord Justice Fraser and the judicial process to take place and therefore understand exactly sort of what it was. The powers of the justice system were far greater than those of the NFSP. So, as far as understanding the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, I had confidence in that process. So I didn't think we could. So we just sat back, really waiting for that process to take place. If I'm wrong in that, that I'll accept that, but certainly that's our mindset at that time.
It might be thought that adopting a neutral stance was quite a cynical decision to take, as it allowed the NFSP to back the winning horse after the outcome of the case had been determined. Is that fair?
I think that would be a cynical view.
You had implored your predecessor, had you not, to support the sub-postmasters whose cases were being reviewed by Second Sight before you became CEO of the organisation.
Yes.
Why then did you not, in your role as CEO, support the claimants who were bringing their claims in court?
Because I didn't think we could. Sorry if that's if that was wrong in that way, but I honestly didn't think it was our place. As Lord Justice Fraser made it clear, we were not involved in the court case. So I didn't think we could make comment. I honestly thought that if we did, that might prejudice it in some way, shape or form. I didn't want to do that.
So you're saying that so far as you were concerned, there was a fundamental difference between supporting those cases that were being reviewed by Second Sight, even though they might have resulted in a criminal prosecution and therefore a legal process, and supporting the group litigation, which was ongoing at that time. Is that your evidence?
Sorry, I'm not really understanding it. All I can say, Sadiq, is that I just didn't think that it was our place. We could make comment on an ongoing case. I didn't think we could. So we didn't.
Please can NFSP 50710 be shown on the screen? This is an internal email chain between members of your team discussing whether or not the NFSP should comment publicly on the GLO proceedings. Please could we scroll down to the bottom of page 4. We can see there an email from John Folifant, which has the title Articles for the Magazine. It's dated 8th of November 2018. It reads, "Hi, two things. There's a forum for post office people and sub-postmasters which meets to outline new proposals, new kits, etc. Perhaps a report is needed in the magazine. I've been following the initial High Court case about Horizon problems and the disciplinary action taken by Post Office over the years. Quite interesting and potentially a major issue for the Post Office in the future. It must be costing Post Office and thus the network a lot of money in legal fees. Whether we can be that critical in a magazine funded by Post Office is an interesting point. Regards, John." He raises there a concern that because the Sub-Postmaster magazine is ultimately funded by the Post Office, it wouldn't be appropriate for the NFSP to comment. Did you agree with that?
No. Can I just sort of add, I mean, this was obviously, John is a lovely, lovely gentleman who cares passionately about the business. He was a postmaster for a good number of years, and thankfully is only very recently been able to finally retire. You know, I don't think he, in any way, shape or form, would try to put across a view that would be detrimental to postmasters.
If we scroll up to the middle of the third page, please, we can see your response a little. Thank you very much. So your response of the 8th of November reads, "Hi, John. My viewpoint is that as individuals with personal interest in this case, we want to know the verdict of the judge, but it would be unwise for us to make any comment at this stage. I was present today. I would say that we are still at the opening credits of the case, so it's way too early to ascertain which way it will go. As Lynn suggests, acknowledging that the case is being heard and we await the judgment with interest is the best we should do via the sub-postmaster." Now, what you appear to be saying here to your colleagues is that you don't know which way the case is going to be decided, and so it would be in the best interest of the NFSP to hedge their bets. Is that fair?
No.
Please, can NFSP, is there anything further you wish to say about this email before I move on?
Well, I think the very bottom I think is important as well. You know, I'd received an email, probably the vilest I can. I tried to sort of find what that email is. I haven't been able to find it, but it gives an indication of really just some of the stuff that we receive from people, whether they are postmasters or just interested individuals from the general public. There was a lot of pressure on us in one way, shape or form, and as I say, all we were trying to do is allow the due legal process to take place and hear, because we didn't know, we didn't have the evidence, and we hoped that through the GLO, the evidence would come out and reveal exactly what had gone on in the past. So that was just our view. We felt that it wasn't right for us to make comment.
Please can NFSP 50707 be shown on the screen? This document contains an email from you to an employee of the post office named Rob Horton. Can you please describe his role and the nature of your relationship with him?
So Rob Houghton,
Houghton.
Yeah, sorry, was the Chief Information Officer at the Post Office. He wasn't there long, maybe 2017 to 2019. I don't think he was there that long, but anyway, that's who he was.
I'd like to ask you about some comments which you make in the second paragraph of this email. Thank you. It's dated the 24th of April 2018 from you to Rob with the subject branch refresh. You say, "There are a number of aspects that I feel I need to highlight with you, but most pressing is the growing loss of confidence by colleagues in the system due to both a mixture of hardware and software issues during and after installation of the new system and or router. Add to this that there has now been 4 system faults over the last month, which have caused nationwide access problems. Thus, I'm concerned that we're handing Freeths a stronger case to bring to court in November, as the present is a guide to the past, is a strong argument." Now, one possible reading of this email is that you were not as well disposed to the group litigants and their litigation as you are now claiming to be, and that you were primarily concerned about maintaining confidence in the Horizon system. Would that be fair?
I think it would be fair to say that I was trying to ensure that there was confidence in the Horizon system. I think that's important as a postmaster, someone who uses Horizon, and along with the rest of my colleagues, I think it is vitally important that we have confidence in it. But what I was trying to do here, and if I may, there was this branch refresh that was going on at that time, and postmasters were coming to us and saying that they were having problems. And when it says it was literally good to bump into you, that was a little description. I happened to come out of a room within the post office, turned a corner, and I literally flattened him. So I bumped into him, and he virtually ended up on the floor. So hence the reason, literally good to bump into you. But all I'm trying to do here is highlight that there is problems with Horizon today, and if you don't sort this out, then you're in essence making it easier for Frees as far as their case is concerned. Do something about this. But I'm not saying that I disagree with what's going on. I'm just trying to make sure that what was happening to postmasters at that time in relation to the new system was problems. And eventually what came out of this meeting was we ended up with different suppliers from the post office all in a room where I was able to explain to those individuals what postmasters were experiencing. Because postmasters were not able to trade. They were losing business. That's what I was trying to sort of do. Not anything. I appreciate how you can read it. That's not what I was trying to say.
I'd like to explore with you what, if any, role the Grant Framework Agreement had in your decision not to speak out in support of the group litigation. The inquiries heard evidence from your predecessor about the background to the Grant Framework Agreement. I don't propose to go over the same ground with you, as you were not directly involved in the negotiation which led to it. Is that correct?
Yes.
You are, however, familiar with its terms as it remained in force when you took over as CEO in June 2018. Is that right?
Yes.
In your statement, you describe the Framework Agreement in this way. You say, the Grant Framework Agreement is an agreement between the NFSP and Post Office to provide funding from the Post Office to enable the NFSP to offer support to postmasters. It was designed so that this support was free at the point of use to all postmasters. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think you accept that this apparent benevolence of the Post Office came at a certain price. Is that right?
Given the type of organisation that the Post Office is, it is very difficult to deal with them in any way, shape or form. I think when if you consider the time period that the inquiry is looking at, the Grant Framework Agreement is only in place to the very end of it. That had nothing to do with the activities and the viewpoints of the NFSP prior to that. As far as this situation is concerned, the Grant Framework had nothing to do with the view that I was taking. There was no influence from the Post Office in any way, shape or form to pressurise the NFSP into taking a view or a stance. So it had nothing to do with it in that way.
I'd like, if we can, please, to look at the terms of that agreement. It bears the reference NFSP 401075. Thank you. So the agreement's dated 21st of July 2015. The relevant clause can be found at page 10, please, under the heading General Conditions of the Grant. So paragraph 5.3. The NFSP shall not engage in the following activities or behaviours, these being conditions on which the grant funding is made. So the NFSP shall not, firstly, undertake any public activity which may prevent Post Office from implementing any of its initiatives, policies or strategies. Secondly, undertaking or inducing a third party to undertake media or political campaigns against the Post Office. Thirdly, organising or inducing a third party to organise public demonstrations, protests or petitions against the Post Office. Fourthly, organising or inducing a third party to organise boycotts of Post Office business. Fifthly, funding or inducing any third-party litigation against Post Office. And finally, broad catch-all, other activities or behaviour, the effect of which may be materially detrimental to the Post Office. So those are some of the conditions of the grant. Could we please scroll to page 16 of the document? We see there another related clause which bears the heading withholding, suspending and repayment of grant. This is clause number 17. It reads, the Post Office's intention is that the grant will be paid to the NFSP in full. However, without prejudice to the Post Office's other rights and remedies, it may at its discretion withhold or suspend payment of the annual grant payment and or an individual grant and or require repayment of all or part of the annual grant and or an individual grant if there is an event of clawback. The term event of clawback is defined on the following page, thank you, under clause 17.2, and the first such event or circumstances where the NFSP commits a breach of any of its obligations under clause 5 and or clause 12. Now, you said in your statement, and you claim in your evidence today that these clauses had no bearing upon the actions of the NFSP in relation to Horizon. Is that your evidence?
No, I don't think that's what I said. In relation to the GLO, because that's the question you were asking me, it had no bearing on that. And I don't think that, given the fact that the GFA only came into place in 2016, when all of the criminal prosecutions had stopped by then, had really much to do, because it didn't really cover the time period. And when most of the time period that the inquiry and the GLO was covering, the NFSP was a trade union funded by its members, so therefore it couldn't have anything, really didn't have anything to do with it.
Now, you've made the point in your statement and this morning that so far as the period prior to the grant framework agreement is concerned, that could not have been influenced by these provisions because they didn't come into force until 2015. As you rightly say, I'm asking you about the period after they came into force and your conduct in relation to the group litigation. Now, you've explained that you felt sympathy for the group litigants, and indeed you wished to convey that and to show your support privately to Mr. Bates, but you weren't prepared to do so publicly. Is it your evidence that that decision was not in any way influenced by these provisions?
Absolutely.
You were aware, though, were you not, that there was a risk that the Post Office might seek to claw back the funding provided to the NFSP if you incited other sub-postmasters to bring claims against it?
It's there, sort of within the clause, clause 5.3.
Let's take a look, please, at some minutes of the board, NFSP 50534. As this is a meeting of the board in June 2017. By this stage, you were a member
Yes.
of the board of the NFSP. If we could turn, please, to page 12. We see there recorded a discussion about the group litigations under the heading Communications. The third bullet point reads, against express instructions, in the last issue of the Sub-Postmaster, LBM had taken an advert from Threef's Justice for Sub-Postmasters. LBM were whom, please?
Lewis Business Media, who published the Sub-Postmaster magazine.
Post Office, understandably, went ballistic. Emergency meeting held with LBM, with Post Office in attendance. It was made crystal clear that their actions were totally unacceptable. It made it look like the NFSP were inciting sub-postmasters to take the company to court. May need to beef up resources and bring the magazine in-house in the future. That mistake could have cost the NFSP the payments from Post Office and ultimately finished the organisation it was really very serious. Now, we see Miss Eccles mentioned at the top there. Was that an update from her in her capacity as Director of Communications?
I don't think she had even started at that point. It was more just informing the board that Lynn would be starting.
These minutes show, do they not, that the board of the NFSP at that time was fearful that it would lose its funding from the Post Office if it were to lend its support to the group litigation?
I think at that point it was being, this discussion was being led by George rather than the board. George was putting forward his view. I think George's view on Horizon is pretty clear, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that that was the view of the whole board. Anyway, that was George's view, George's opinion. But I wasn't aware, I wasn't party to the discussion that took place. I don't know if the Post Office did go ballistic or whether that was George's interpretation of it. I have no idea.
These minutes suggest, do they not, that the loss of grant funding would have brought an end to the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters?
Well, I think so. Any business exists on its ability to fund its outgoings. If it's not able to do that, then it will no longer exist. It's as simple as that.
Having been appointed the new leader of the NFSP, was your primary concern to ensure the survival of the organisation, rather than to obtain justice for sub-postmasters who've been wrongly convicted?
No. I think, we've got postmasters need a body that represents them. It needs a body that can do that. But I think what we really need to take into account here is the culture within the Post Office. I don't think the GFA is necessarily the issue. I think the culture within the Post Office is. If the culture within the Post Office is that they act in an honourable manner, then the GFA works. But if you've got an organisation that is incapable of doing that and is going to use every trick in the book and everything that it can to push forward its view and defend its position, then it doesn't matter what kind of, doesn't really matter. It's not going to work. The culture in the Post Office is the problem. Sort the culture in the Post Office and we don't have a problem. What we've seen over the last couple of days in relation to the Postmaster non-executive directors is exactly how the Post Office works today. That's the problem, not the GFA, in my view. We need something to be able to hold the Post Office to account. And the fact of the matter is, over this period, the Post Office has not been held to account not been able to be held to account by anyone. And it has done everything it possibly can to obfuscate and to push through so that it gets its views. So obviously, I'm sure you wanted to come on to it, is the new GFA. And you can see straight away, I'm looking to remove these clauses. Why these clauses were originally in the GFA, I don't know. I can't say because I wasn't party to it. Do I agree with them? No. Should they be removed? Absolutely. And thankfully they now have.
If, as you say, the problem resides not in the GFA, but in the culture of the Post Office, why have you, in your words, worked so hard to remove them from the agreement?
Well, is the culture in the Post Office today where it needs to be? No, it's not. I mean, we can see that. This business is in absolute meltdown from the top. Its board, its senior management, they're just incapable of working in the right way. What Justice Fraser has pointed to these as clauses that were problematic to him. We've followed the guidance from Justice Fraser to have those removed. But I still think if we have the right culture within the business, then we can move forward. I mean, from what I want government, the civil service, the Post Office, postmasters, working together in unity and harmony for the good of this business, not a business working for its own benefit. And that's exactly what the Post Office has been doing. And that's the problem. And if they were prepared to behave in the right moral manner, we don't have a problem. The fact of the matter is, Lord Justice Fraser and this inquiry have demonstrated time after time after time that this business is incapable of acting in the right manner. How difficult has the inquiry felt, with all the power, authority and influence you have, in getting this business to provide you with the information to engage with this inquiry in the right manner? You've found it virtually impossible. The frustration, so like I've sat here in this room time after time experiencing the frustration that the inquiry has, because the culture in the Post Office simply isn't there. Get that sorted and I think we have a chance. If the Post Office continues on its current trajectory in the manner it is, we don't. And postmasters will suffer as a result, and we've got to get it right.
It might be suggested, Mr. Greenhow, that in your evidence to this inquiry, you are seeking to shift the blame away from your organisation's focus on its own financial interests and are laying blame squarely on the Post Office. Would that be fair?
I think that's taking it a little bit sort of far. You know, the reality is the NFSP quite, in essence, was on the wrong side of right here. That's we cannot escape that, and I have been open from when I came in. I have offered my apologies. I have been open and straight sort of with people that the NFSP got it wrong. My predecessors put their faith in the Post Office rather than actually in postmasters. They believed the Post Office rather than believing their own fellow colleagues. Simple reality is they got it wrong. So I'm not trying to shift responsibility at all, but I am trying to sort of highlight that the culture within the Post Office is the fundamental problem. They misled everybody.
But do you accept that you and your colleagues put the financial interests of your organisation above the interests of its members?
When?
In its decision to refuse to support the group litigation?
No, I don't think they did, but I do think sort of that George's view of the past was fundamentally wrong, and but I don't think. Obviously, you've had the opportunity to ask George that, and unfortunately, you didn't get the opportunity to get that out of him. But certainly, I can't answer for the past on that basis. But I can talk about from my own part, and I've certainly not put the financial position of the NFSP before members. In fact, I think the evidence demonstrates that.
You've explained in your statement that you had not anticipated the NFSP would become a focus of criticism in the litigation. One of the criticisms which was made by Mr. Justice Fraser, as he then was in his common issues judgment, concerned the NFSP's publication of the Grant Framework Agreement on its website. In summary, the criticism which was made of the NFSP was that during the common issues trial, it had made changes to its website to add a link to the framework agreement in circumstances which were highly suspicious. Do you agree that that's a fair characterisation of the criticism that was made?
Yes.
By Justice Fraser. The reasons why these changes to the website appeared suspicious to him at the time were that, firstly, the link to the framework agreement had not been present at the start of the common issues trial, and the link had been added during the trial in a manner which appeared to support the Post Office's case. Again, is that a fair summary of what the judge...
That's what Lord Justice Fraser, however, I think, as you know, I
yes,
can...
we'll come on to your explanation, but just to place it in context...
That's exactly what he said.
That was the nature of the criticism. I'd like to ask you, please, first to clarify when it was that the framework agreement was first published on the NFSP's website.
I can't answer that. That was before my time.
Please, can NFSP 50728 be shown on the screen? Thank you. So this is an email chain, an internal email
Sorry,
chain.
before you can go, can I just sort of like highlight, so like this at the top, just for everybody's benefit, you can see that that's an email, Calum Greenhow, the 21st of September 2023, to Calum Greenhow. That was me in relation to a Rule 9 request. That was me going through as information that I could, that complied with the Rule 9 request, and I couldn't print it off. So I was having to email it to myself so that I could print it off. So that's, if you see that, that's the reason for it.
And we can see the date there is, of course, September 2023.
But you could look at that and go, oh, it's Calum Greenhow at the top, so therefore he must have known about it. But actually, that's what I was doing.
And that, of course, significantly postdates
Yes.
the actual email.
Yes.
So the chain we have there is dated December 2016. It concerns the publication of the GLO. If we could go to the bottom of page 1, please. Thank you. There's an email from Nick Beale to George Thompson and copied to Jenna Calfin. Please, could you just explain Nick Beale's role, please? We can see there, sorry, at the bottom of the page. He was then head of Agents Development and Remuneration.
Yeah.
So his email reads, the subject grant agreement, dear George, further to the discussions we have had between us since the inception of the grant agreement in 2013, I can confirm that we are now in a position to agree publication of the agreement and associated novation agreement. Are you able to confirm what was the purpose of the novation agreement? Do you recall?
Well, it was before my time. It may be in the bundle, but I can't remember offhand.
We've decided previously that this would be via NFSP publishing via your website. Please proceed with this as soon as possible. I have attached a PDF version of each document. Please can you ensure for the GA, the grant agreement, it is clear that this was the version that was entered into and the date of the agreement, the 21st of July 2015. Please advise when this has been placed on your website and a copy of the link. If we scroll up, please. We can see an email from Gemma Calfin to George Thompson. So this is now the 19th of December. George, I'm going to publish the attached grant agreement on the About Us page on our website. Do I need to publish the deed of novation too? So far as you're aware, is this the best evidence which the NFSP has as to the date on which the framework agreement was first published on the website?
To my knowledge, yes.
We know that by early October 2018, the GFA had been removed from the website.
That was during the GLO, yeah.
Exactly. In your statement, you say that the GFA was removed as part of some improvements which were being made by the communications director. Is that right?
Yes.
At that stage, that would have been Ms. Eccles.
Yes.
Right. When were these improvements made, which resulted in the removal of the GFA?
They were ongoing at that period of time, so late 2018.
So after your appointment as
Yes,
CEO?
yeah.
And so they coincided with the Common Issues trial, is that essentially what you're saying?
They did, yes.
But the agreement was removed before the trial commenced?
I don't know if it was removed before the trial commenced, but I'm aware that it obviously was removed and then subsequently put back up.
Why was there any need to remove the agreement from the website?
So Lynn, I mean, in essence, one of the things, through conversation that Lynn and I had been having, we just felt that, in essence, I was a different person, I have a different character, I have a different outlook, that there were many aspects of the Federation that were kind of oldie, and we wanted to really give the whole outlook and business a freshen up in essence. So we instituted our mission, vision and values. We were changing our colour schemes, the logo, our tone of voice. We were going through doing a new website, and Lynn felt that the About Us was not the right place for it to be. She was going to put it onto a different part of the new website that she was working on, and she had taken it off as she was working on that particular page. That's certainly what she had told me at the time.
Could the agreement not have remained on the website pending its relocation?
Could have.
You go on to explain in your statement that Miss Eccles decided to place the GFA back onto the website when she discovered that its publication had become the subject of discussion in the Common Issues trial. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you discuss this decision with her at the time?
Not until afterwards, actually. It wasn't a case of... she was following Nick Wallace's live blog, which was very, very helpful. I was busy dealing with other things. And obviously she realised that it was there. And as I've explained in my statement, she felt that people might go and have a look for it. So she decided to put it back on.
It is an odd coincidence that these changes coincided with the Common Issues trial.
What a coincidence. These do happen.
But you can understand, can you, why the judge at least appeared to think that was something that was quite suspicious?
Yeah, I can understand, given everything he was hearing. Of course, I wasn't aware of exactly everything he was hearing. I wasn't aware of all the bundles, all the evidence that he was getting. But yes, I could understand it. But from my perspective, as I was looking at it, I know that there was nothing suspicious about it. There was nothing going on. And we were certainly not trying to bolster the position of the Post Office. I know that for a fact.
Was Miss Eccles concerned, based on your discussions with her, to answer the criticisms that were being made in the proceedings about the lack of transparency that the NFSP and the Post Office were showing in relation to the terms of the agreement?
No, I think it was more, it's being discussed, people might go and look for it, we better make sure that it's there. I don't think there was anything of any transparent concern going on.
I'd like to move on to a new topic, please. This concerns the outcome of the group litigation and how the NFSP has responded to the issues raised in the judgment of Mr. Justice Fraser. How would you characterise your initial reaction to the Common Issues judgment?
Well, I think there's an email where I think I sent to the board where I outline that the Common Issues ruling has been handed down, that we need to read it, we need to understand it. It was a long, obviously, ruling, and again, not a lawyer. It's going to take me a little bit of time to actually understand the nuance of it. Obviously, there's a lot of legal speak in it, which as someone who's not trained might be difficult to understand. So let's take time to actually fully understand exactly what's going on. At the same time, across social media, there were those who have an anti-NFSP feeling who were using that to challenge the NFSP, undermine the NFSP, criticise the NFSP in front of our peers. And that caused us to have to, in essence, do a bit of a knee-jerk response without really fully understanding exactly what Justice Fraser had said. But given the fact that they were focusing on those specific aspects of was it? Well, it was clause 574 onwards, an F within his ruling that covered the NFSP. We had to respond to that, and but I think it's not what I wanted to do, but I felt I had to say something, and I very quickly, once that was dealt with, very quickly was able to focus on exactly what it was that Justice Fraser said, and then I think sort of the evidence is there that we really start to really, the full reality of exactly what the Post Office had done, and the exposure to risk that all postmasters and all employees of the Post Office, in essence anyone who worked behind the counter of a Post Office, was faced. And we really, we really couldn't believe that the most trusted brand in the Post Office, a government owned department, could behave in the way that they actually did. And you can see that sort of from the statements that we were putting out at that time, that there was one statement that we put out which is a bit of a knee-jerk, but the rest of it was very much critical of the Post Office and supportive of the victims of this miscarriage of justice.
It might be suggested, Mr. Greenhow, that in the explanation you've just given, you were somewhat downplaying the sense of anger and frustration which you expressed at the time, the judgment of Mr. Justice Fraser in the Common Issues trial. Is that fair?
Sorry, could you explain just what you're meaning by that?
I'm suggesting that you are downplaying the anger and frustration that you felt at the time about what was said about the NFSP in the Common Issues judgment. Is that fair?
No.
And please can we look at NFSP 50558? These are the minutes of a board meeting held in March 2019, at which you gave a presentation to the board about the Common Issues judgment. Is that correct?
Yes.
We can see a description of your initial reaction at the top of page 6, please. On the third paragraph reads, "General outrage that the judge should see fit to cast aspersions about the NFSP, who played no part in the trial, gave no evidence, were not asked for documentation, or given the right to defend ourselves." Does that accurately summarise how you felt about the judgment when it was first handed down?
I think we were surprised is the reality of it. We we just felt that, in essence, bemused, and again, appreciate sort of, as a lawyer who's experienced in these things, but to people who are not, we just couldn't sort of we didn't realise that we would be such a focus. And obviously, there were things that were being said about the NFSP at the time by others that were really making it difficult for the NFSP, and the reality sort of was that we're also aware that there was things that he said, highly suspicious. We knew that wasn't correct. We had bolstered the position of the Post Office. We knew that wasn't correct, and we were stunned in one sense.
It appears that your initial focus was upon the reputation of the organisation. Is that fair?
The immediate sort of aspect, the reputation of the NFSP, yes, of course. The reality is that, as an organisation, we want to help postmasters. We want to sort of make sure we are postmasters. At this moment in time, I still own a post office. I want to sort of make sure that this network not just survives, but it thrives. I want to make sure that sort of postmasters are able to continue to provide services in their community. And there were those who were really trying to make it difficult for the NFSP, and they were using the judgment as a weapon to criticise us. So that's in essence what we were feeling. It wasn't just about what Lord Justice Fraser had said. It was about sort of actually the level of stuff that was being mentioned across social media.
Would it be right to say that your initial feelings of anger gave way to a period of reflection and have resulted in changes being made to the organisation and structure of the NFS?
Absolutely. I think, if I may, I think you can sort of see that before the judgments has come out that I was trying to make those, and in essence I could see this, and this might sound wrong, so please forgive me, a little bit of a distraction, and where I felt that I needed to take the business, and where the board needed to take the NFSP for the good of postmasters, for the benefit of postmasters, that this was going to make it difficult. This was making the journey or the hill steeper. And as I say, there were those who were trying to really weaponise the judgment against the NFSP, and this was kind of taking us back a step or two, and whether that was going to make it more difficult for us to make the changes within the NFSP that we needed to. And in essence, this has haunted me all of the way through. So the time that I've been the Chief Executive of the NFSP, I know what I need to do in this business. My board knows what we need to do in this business to really take this organisation forward for the good and benefit of postmasters. And people try to weaponise this, and it makes it harder. I keep on having to come back to this and deal with it, rather than being able to do what I need to do, what we need to do, to move the NFSP forward for the good of postmasters.
The first initiative which I'd like to examine with you relates to the recording and monitoring of members' concerns.
Yeah.
Prior to the GLO, is it right that there was no system in place which required local representatives, whether branch secretaries or regional secretaries, to report to central office the issues which were being communicated by their members?
No.
There was also no system in place to enable the central recording and monitoring of such issues, is that right?
I'd say to my knowledge, no.
Please can you describe the action which you have taken to address this problem?
So one of the things that sort of we've tried to put into place, or have put into place, is the collation. There's a spreadsheet that we deal with on a weekly basis. If any branch secretary receives a call from a member, that they fill in a form, they do it on a weekly basis. That automatically sort of comes into the central NFSP, and that is collated onto a central record, and then myself and 2 employees of the NFSP on a monthly basis go through that to ascertain whether there's any anomalies or any issues that we really need to highlight. That is then put into data that is provided to the board. We put it into the sub-postmaster so that members are aware of exactly what's going on.
You say, so in your statement, you've mentioned that this spreadsheet is collated and it culminates in a quarterly report to the board. You've explained that the most common issues raised, I think at least in the last year, relate to the historic shortfall scheme.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Please can you describe the nature of the concerns that are still being raised by your members in relation to the scheme?
Lately, what people they've been receiving the letters in relation to the 75,000, and they've thought it was a scam. So they've been calling us to say, is this right? We've been able to obviously assure them that it is. Others, just how long is it taking? How do I fill out the form? Where can I get the form? Can I still apply? All things like that.
It sounds from your description those are more queries than complaints. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Now, another method I think you've mentioned in your statement for canvassing views of the membership is the use of surveys. Is that correct?
Yes.
How frequently are they undertaken?
On a monthly basis. We have done 2 large case member surveys, 2019 and 2021. On both of those occasions, I think we had about 1,000 postmasters that were involved in that. That was done to quite a... I'm not a statistician or... don't know what the term is, but anyway, a researcher. But they're done to industry standards, the information that came back. So we made sure that there was a certain number of local post offices, mains post offices, different contracts, traditional contracts, and also spread around the country as well. So that we've really got a very broad cross section, so like understanding of exactly what it is that postmasters think. The monthly ones are just put out, and it's for any postmaster to respond. So it's not done to the gold standard. It's just literally a survey that goes out and people respond.
Now, I think it's your evidence that during the period covered by this inquiry, there was no formal whistleblowing policy or complaints procedure in place within the NFSP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What action have you taken to address that gap in the procedures?
Well, we've done that now, and we've obviously supplied those to the inquiry. They're on our website now, and with the help of our legal team, we've drafted them, and they are now available. So that's a whistleblowing, a complaints, and also an equality and diversity policy.
And they're now all publicly available on your website?
They are available to the members on our member. So there's 2 sides to our website. There's the member side, and then there's the public side. So they're available on the member side.
Why are they not available on the public side?
It's for members, so that's why we've put it on that side.
The second initiative, which I would like to examine with you, concerns the provision of training given to those responsible for representing sub-postmasters in disputes with the Post Office. You've explained in your statement that when you were appointed a branch secretary in 2012, there was no formal training on the conduct of interviews. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You say that you believe this resulted in a lack of consistency in the support which was provided to sub-postmasters in the period covered by this inquiry. Is that right?
I would agree with that.
You have launched an initiative which you describe as the Advocacy Representative Project.
Yes.
Can you please describe that project which you've established to address this issue?
So, again, so like listening to the GLO and listening to and taking my own experience into account, I felt that dealing with the post office is not an easy thing. As far as any policies, procedures, the way the post office go about things, they can change. And therefore I felt that it was right and appropriate that we had properly trained individuals, a small team that if there was a contractual issue that may result in a suspension or a termination, that it wasn't just anybody who would deal with that. They would have a small team that could work together, pool their resources together, pool their experience together, and make sure that if a colleague was in that situation again, as we've heard just over the last couple of days, just how harrowing that can be, that the NFSP is there to challenge the Post Office appropriately and to make sure that everything is being done to investigate exactly why a discrepancy has taken place, and that it's not simply you're short, you owe us the money, if you don't give us the money we're going to terminate your contract.
You said in your statement you now have 6 dedicated representatives who are trained in the Post Office's contracts to represent sub-postmasters.
Yes.
In interview. Who provided or who provides the training to those representatives?
So it was in-house that we did that. However, we did seek the support and help of our employment professionals, HR for UK, and they gave us guidance on how to do that. We have continued to reflect and continue to look at that. And we are now engaging with ACAS, because they have a mediation service, and we're looking to sort of see if that could be something that would actually sit better for us, so that it would be not only an external, but it would be an accredited a qualification. So we're in the process of looking at that and seeing if that would work and sit with us.
How is the performance of these new representatives monitored by the NFSP? Do you have any systems in place for that purpose?
Good question. We don't have any KPIs, if that's what you're kind of referring to, but I do meet with the 2 individuals who are responsible for overlooking this. In essence, going through and ascertaining whether the right decisions has been reached. I've not, as I've looked at things, had any issues or any worries as far as outcomes are concerned. However, we do feel that it would be better for us to have an external accredited qualification to give our members greater confidence in relation to the quality of knowledge and understanding that we have in that area.
Thank you. In your statement, you've described the current approach that's adopted by the NFSP when supporting sub-postmasters in disputes with the Post Office. That's at paragraph 273 of your statement, please, at WITN 00370100. Thank you. That can be found, the paragraph can be found at page 94, going on to page 95. Thank you very much. If we scroll down, please. Thank you. So that reads, where the NFSP is asked for help, our goal is to ensure that Post Office is respectful, helpful in terms of providing access to any information, carries out a full and thorough investigation, and is understanding in terms of any conclusions. In terms of an investigation, Post Office must answer the 3 questions of A, is it computer error? B, has someone made a mistake and why? C, have the funds of the Post Office been used in the manner they are not intended, and by whom? You go on to say, if Post Office cannot answer these questions factually, then the postmaster should not be held to account. Some of these cases are very complex and are being dealt with by the relevant police authorities. Now, earlier in your evidence, we examined a case in which the Post Office did not provide the information which you had requested on behalf of a member. What is your organisation doing now to ensure that full disclosure is being provided to sub-postmasters, as you've outlined here?
Well, when it comes to, there are certain reports that the Post Office does, and that is the first thing that we sort of ask for. And if we don't get those, we don't move forward. It's as simple as that. But I have to sort of say, Post Office, certainly my understanding are far more transparent than they have been in the past, and certainly going back to 2016. If we ask for information, they will usually provide it. It's not been reported to me any concerns and any issues on that.
So is it your evidence that these questions that you've outlined here, they are now being answered, to your knowledge, satisfactorily by the Post Office in cases in which your members are concerned?
To my knowledge, yes.
I'd like to examine with you now the efforts which you've made to bring about cultural change in the NFSP. You identify in your statement a number of initiatives which you have adopted to improve the culture of the NFSP and the well-being of its members. One of those initiatives is the establishment of a culture committee. Can you please explain the background to that?
So we haven't, that's not established yet. We're in the process of doing that. As I highlighted, we had Darren Burns from the Timson Group come along to the NFSP conference this year. In preparation for Darren coming, I read Sir John Timson's book Upside Down Management, and I came across this within his book, and he explained it beautifully, and I thought, this is exactly what we need. We need to do this. As I've highlighted sort of before, I'm an inclusive person rather than an exclusive person. I want to encourage people. I want to lift people up. I want to encourage them on. I enjoy hearing and listening to different voices, different viewpoints. But I do think that culturally, as I've already highlighted, the Post Office is clearly not moved forward in any way, shape or form since the GLO. I also think that there's a level of toxicity in the network as a result of that. Postmasters are understandably very, very worried about their future and the viability of their business, and I think that is that pressure is causing some to maybe act in a manner that maybe doesn't quite sort of reach the standards that postmasters should maintain. And therefore, on that basis, I think it's important that we have postmasters themselves helping us to establish what it is that standard should be, what it is. You know, we can all sit here and say that postmasters are good, honest, decent people, fine, upstanding pillars of their community, which I fundamentally believe that they are. But what's wrong within the network? And I do believe that it's very important that we all take a good look at ourselves in the mirror, everyone who's been involved in this, and go, where did we get this wrong? How can, you know, where's our culture part of the problem? And it's very easy for us to point the finger of blame at sort of other people, but we've got to actually first and foremost look at ourselves. And therefore, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for postmasters to help us make sure that the culture within the network is right, so that we can help take this business forward and make sure that postmasters' businesses are as viable as they possibly can. So I don't want to be prescriptive as to what that is, but I'm looking for 10 people across the country, one per region. If there's more than one person comes forward, we'll have a democratic vote on that within the region. But I will be looking, and then once that culture committee has been established, we'll sit down and we'll look at what is it that's the focus of that committee is going to be? What is it that is going to be the priorities, and how are we going to bring that about?
Thank you, Mr. Greenhow. In answer to my question about the NFSP's culture, you said that you don't believe the culture of the Post Office has moved on.
Yes.
We'll come on a little later to the culture of the Post Office, but I want to test with you whether that's a fair statement in light of what you have, the evidence that you've just given about the approach that the Post Office is taking to its investigation of contractual shortfalls and the disclosure that it's providing. You've just told the inquiry that, so far as you are aware, proper and adequate disclosure is being provided now by the Post Office in the context of those investigations. So does that not reflect some change of culture and attitude within the organisation?
I would accept that, and actually I have to sort of say that, and again I say it in my statement, that actually within the branch assurance team, I think there are real major changes there and real efforts to be far more open and transparent than what I experienced in the past. I was in essence highlighting at a senior level that and what we've heard and what we've listened to, certainly in relation to the two postmaster non-executive directors and what they've experienced. Clearly, there are still a long way to go. But yes, there is. I would say that there are some lovely, lovely people within the Post Office who really want to engage and work and have the right attitude. I'm not saying all is bad. There are some aspects that are positive, and I think that comes down to the individuals, and we have to encourage them and support them as they move forward in that, and really try to make that cultural change that is required.
Before we move off this topic, please, I'd like to ask you about a recent decision of the NFSP to refuse the application of an individual who wished to be admitted as a member. So far as the rules governing membership of the NFSP are concerned, you've explained in your statement, firstly, that anyone who holds a contract to operate as a sub-postmaster may be admitted to the organisation. Is that correct?
Correct.
That, secondly, the board of the NFSP has the right, in its reasonable discretion, to refuse to admit an applicant and not to provide its reasons for doing so. Is that right?
Yes.
And that there is no right of appeal in respect of that decision?
Yes.
Correct. That's all provided for in the NFSP's Articles of Association? Which
were obviously laid down in 2015 when we became a company limited by guarantee.
Now, I wonder if we could turn, please, to paragraph...
Can I just come back to that, if I may? I'd love to change the Articles of Association because I feel that there's a lot in there that we need to shift forward on. It's a huge piece of work, and I've tried to do some things, particularly around the branch and regional secretaries, just to give them far greater prominence and position within the NFSP. But there's a lot that I would like to. But if I may, I haven't actually sat down with someone who is would have a legal understanding and gone through it line by line and said, yeah, you need to change this would be a good idea. And I do think that allowing an appeal process would be a good thing to introduce. And it's something I would like to do in maybe when this inquiry is all over. But it's consumed my life for the last 4 years, as I'm sure it has yours, I feel that I need to deal with this now, and then I'll deal with that then. But there's a lot in those Articles of Association that I think I would like to change. But when that happens, it will be done with the help and support of postmasters, the membership of the NFSP.
Thank you. Please could we bring up your statement at page 106, please, where we can see the explanation that you've given, the reasons you've given as to why the board refused that application. Paragraph 299, please. Thank you. You say there, in this calendar year, one application was refused. This is the only application I am aware of being refused since I came into post as Chief Executive. This application came from someone who had previously been a member of the NFSP. I've highlighted above the behaviour of some on social media, whether by members or former members, and the mental health impact of that on our employees and postmasters. Just pausing there, please. We haven't gone to that. Can you describe what you're referring there, the behaviour on social media, and the impact that this had on your...
Yeah, so the individual, not sure if I'm allowed, I don't know whether I can talk about the specifics or the generality, but let me be general, and if you feel you want me to be specific, I'll be more than happy to be. But there are some within the network who use social media to, and that causes postmaster colleagues and NFSP employees quite considerable mental stress. To give an example, there was just about 10 days ago, there was on a social media site an encouragement to postmasters to single out and target a member of an employee of the NFSP to harass them for a bit of fun. Obviously, on Monday, Tuesday, the inquiry heard about playground schoolboy antics. I don't consider that to necessarily fall into that level. To specifically target an individual to harass them, I don't think meets the standards of how postmasters should behave on groups. To encourage people to behave in that way is to me is not acceptable. And therefore, if we are aware of that going on, it's not how we want. It's part of the reason why we want to set up the culture committee. It's part of the reason why we want to do that, so that postmasters, whilst we understand people's frustration, there's a limit to sort of where that should go, and a limit to how that should, there's below the line and there's above the line, there's acceptable and unacceptable. And we just felt that in this case, the individual had displayed some of that in the past, and it caused employees distress, and that by admitting the individual back into the NFSP, that was only inviting or allowing that to happen again. Therefore, on that basis, we have a duty of care towards not only our postmaster members, but our NFSP employees, and therefore, reluctantly, and we deliberated it at great length, we decided that it, to protect our members, that was the right decision. It's not what we want to do, but some people's, doesn't matter what you say, they're not prepared to. They think they can do what they want, when they want, how they want, and if you disagree with them, they will use any avenue that they possibly can to call you for whatever. Well, that's not acceptable. I personally don't think that that's the standard that postmasters should behave in.
I just want to clarify with you to make sure I've fully understood the reasons. What I understand you to be saying is that this individual applicant had been responsible in the recent past for posting social media posts which were abusive in their content. Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
And they had specifically hounded an NFSP employee and caused them quite considerable distress.
And again, sorry, it was this particular applicant who had targeted,
Yes.
you say, one of your employees.
Yes.
On social media.
Yes.
In a manner that you've described as harassing.
Yes.
Is that correct? and it was based on the content of the abusive messages and the distress which it caused at least one of your employees, that the board decided not to admit this individual
Yes.
into the NFSP. Is that your evidence?
Yes.
Now, can we
Can I also clarify, so that they didn't actually apply in their name? They applied in a pseudonym. So again, so that we felt that that was disingenuous. That if you're not willing to be open and transparent with us as to who you are, that it doesn't really show respect towards the NFSP, and therefore, again, that was also part of the reasons why we declined their membership.
Please can WITN 00370-127 be shown on the screen? Thank you. If we scroll down, please. Sorry, if we could go down a little bit further. Thank you. This appears to be a draft of the letter which was sent to the applicant refusing his application for membership. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's dated the 13th of March 2024 and reads, Dear Mr. J, thank you for your email and completed NFSP application form dated 6th of February 2024. I'm writing to inform you that a decision has been made by the NFSP's board members to decline your application for NFSP membership. The decision will also become applicable if you or any other member applies to nominate you as an organisational representative. And I refer you to Section 9, Item 9.3 of our Articles of Association, which provide the Council may, in its reasonable discretion, decline to accept any person as a member and need not provide its reasons for doing so. Now, in your statement and in your evidence today, you've given a detailed reason as to why the application was refused. Why did this letter provide no reason to the applicant explaining the grounds for the refusal of his application?
We just thought that's a decision we had made. We didn't have to, as per 9.3, provide a specific reason for doing so. We just felt that was probably the simplest and easiest way to deal with it. I don't think knowing the individual, didn't matter what we put down. I don't think it would have been accepted. It didn't matter what we said. It would be used in a manner to undermine the NFSP. Because that was the behaviour of the individual, and it's sad that that's the case. I would rather have, as I say, I'm an inclusive person. This is not something that sits easily with me. It's not something that sits comfortably with me. But sometimes I have to make difficult decisions, and this is one of them.
The fact that you don't have a duty to give a reason, of course, doesn't preclude you from giving a reason to the applicant, does it?
Yeah, but as I've already said, I don't think any answer that we would have given would have. I don't think there was any way that the individual would go, yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough. That's a fair point. This is not an individual who had any conversation, any discourse that we've had with them over the period has ever accepted anything that we've said. And as I've said, has gone to quite significant lengths and has caused our employees, some really, really good people, distress. And despite trying to say, look, just tone it down and maybe there's a different way we can do this, it's not going to happen. So, as I say, knowing the individual, didn't matter what we said, it was never going to be accepted. So just quote the rules and move on.
If you are concerned about the culture on social media,
Very concerned about the culture on social media.
why then not explain to the applicant the reasons why you considered their conduct to be unacceptable?
Because I think that's only just going to invite more and more and more and more. You know, the reality is, this is, as I've tried to sort of say, this is not someone who will take. This is someone who believes they can do what they want, when they want, how they want. And if you happen to disagree with them, they will go to extreme lengths to get their way, even if it's causing people mental distress. That's of no concern. So I don't think that there's any. Sometimes you've really just got to go, sorry, no, move on.
Do you not think it would help, Mr. Greenhow, to be more transparent about your decision making in order to avoid possible misunderstandings or suspicion about the motives of the board in turning down an application like this?
If you're dealing with an individual who'd be willing to be reasonable on that matter, then yes, I would agree with you. But it doesn't, as I've tried to explain, it doesn't matter what we said to this individual. They would never take anything that we said as, all right, okay, fair enough, I've overstepped the line. Maybe the language I've used, or maybe the things that I've done, I've gone too far. They've demonstrated that time after time. So, as I say, it was simply to protect our employees from further potential harassment. We felt that this was the right course of action.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of that topic. I'm mindful it's now 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Maybe sensible to break now.
Yes, by all means.
Shall we return then we can make it 2 o'clock? I don't think we're going to take up the whole of the afternoon.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.